Hey everybody. I just want to take a minute to introduce you guys to the first unit of the semester where we're going to be focusing on inquiry and primary research. So I'm going to start in our Blackboard course site by going into the Unit 1 folder. Now, you see the week 2 folder here, but I want us to start, and I want you guys to start by looking at the material here in Unit 1. So this first PDF here is something that I mentioned in the syllabus, what is inquiry and why subcultures. This provides a little bit of background on my own ideas that are informing our course and kind of justifies the course theme. So you can start with that if you'd like, or you can go here and look at Project 1 and daily. So I'm going to click here and kind of talk you through this. And also, just to be clear, this video will be posted also right under here. So you will have those 3 items to look at to introduce you to Unit 1. So our first project for the course is going to be an ethnographic inquiry essay. And basically what it's going to ask you to do is to begin exploring a subculture of your choice and to formulate open-ended research questions about the community that you can investigate through your own research. This assignment in particular asks you to conduct field work through both observation and interview, which will be guided by those questions, and then near the end of the assignment you will reformulate your research questions, either revise them or add to them, drawing on the information that you've learned from your observation and interview. If we scroll down a little bit, you can see the goals here, and I'll let you read those on your own. But what I do want to talk about a little bit is what you should include in this essay. First, I want you to introduce the subculture, explain why you're curious about it, provide a little bit of background information from a couple sources. Again, the major purpose of this assignment is to practice the primary research through observation and interview. So you won't spend a lot of time looking for background information, but a little bit could be helpful. Then I'll ask you to start with at least 3 major research questions that will guide your field work here. And then following that, I want you to provide a description based on your observation and also some of the key information that you learned in your interview. And in particular with the interview, I want you to both summarize overall what occurred and what you learned there, and then also pinpoint specifics that are important, and then follow that up with a little bit of evaluation and reflection based on how you think it went, how you understood what you learned, and things like that. But as we'll be learning later through some of our other readings before you start writing this assignment, it's really important to observe and listen and record what you learn, and try to suspend your judgment a little bit while you're collecting that research, and then also spend time going back, evaluating and reflecting, but trying to keep those processes in your writing separate if you can, so that you can go back and differentiate between the two, between, for example, what you actually saw and what you thought about what you saw, and we'll be talking about strategies for doing that. Then I'm also going to ask you to bring together your observation and your interview by talking about what you've learned. And here you might come to some tentative conclusions based on the fieldwork that you've done. You can also mention things that surprised you, maybe some of the complexities or tensions that came up for you. And then finally, I want you to conclude with at least 1 tentative inquiry question, which you'll practice formulating a sample one this week. And then identify where you're headed next. So it's really important that your conclusion does this kind of work that I've laid out here. So I'm not asking you to just summarize what you've already said, which is how a lot of students tend to write conclusions. But here I'm asking you to be a little bit more forward thinking with your conclusion. And this format for this paper recognizes that this first project is one part of a larger project. So I want you to think about this as the beginning of your major research project. Formatting and other requirements, you'll see the essay should be at least 4 to 5 pages. And I'm going to ask you to follow citation guidelines according to MLA, which I'll provide you with and we'll talk about later as well. Here you'll get an idea of the evaluation criteria. Again, I'm going to let you read this, but you can see that I'm really looking for you to pose solid questions, and here I indicate that I'm hoping to see those in both the introduction and the conclusion. Your observation, your interview, so I'm going to be looking at descriptions and information that you're learning from both of these kinds of research. And then I'm also going to be looking at your organization carefully. So here I list again what key parts of the paper you should have, and then clarity also. And this evaluation criteria, please read it carefully. You'll practice using it when you do your peer reviews for one another, so you should become as familiar with this as you can. And then important dates for the paper here, you'll see that your draft isn't due until Tuesday, February 17th. With this draft, I'm asking you also to submit some of your notes from your field work. And this is so that your peers and myself can look at that and look at your draft. Some of you also may not have completed rough drafts. You might have notes and an introduction and just a couple pages of your draft, and that's okay. But these are key parts of your research process that I'd like you to submit with your draft. So you'll have notes from your observation and also your interview record, either an audio clip from that, which I'll be showing you how to do and how to submit, and also the log that comes with that. And then you'll see the final project is due Tuesday, February 24th. So there's a week in between your rough draft and your final draft where we'll be doing peer reviews and you'll receive some feedback and have time to revise a little bit. Okay, now I want to talk just briefly about the daily schedule. You'll notice that this has already changed from the tentative schedule that I gave you with the syllabus. This tends to happen quite a bit, and this will probably be pretty close to what you'll see each day, but again, this, depending on how we move through things, this might also change a little bit day to day, and you'll see that in the weekly folders. So first, for the rest of this week, week 2, what we're going to be doing is first you're going to be brainstorming a lot and trying to pick what subculture you want to focus on this semester. And also we'll be reading about and learning about writing as inquiry, and you'll be doing a mini inquiry project that asks you to start with writing and brainstorming and that kind of thing before looking at sources. So we'll have some practice doing that and discussing it, and you'll have some practice thinking about that topic in relation to some secondary research here. Then in week 3 we're going to be focusing on observations. So I've tried to indicate in this column here, and this is a little bit hard to schedule, I guess, especially with our class being online. So what I'm asking you to do is plan to spend at least 60 minutes. You can break that up or do it all at once, doing an observation as a step towards this project one that's due at the end of the unit. And here you'll see we'll do some reading about observations, and then I'll ask you to do that. We'll also end this week reading about interviewing, and I realize that both observing and interviewing are really complicated processes, and that you're only going to really be able to start these. But one of the most important purposes of this unit is to introduce you to these research methods. And it's okay if they don't go as well and they're not as easy or straightforward as you'd like them to be. It's going to be more important that you try them out and that we have a chance to talk about them, so that you can figure out what you might like or how you might continue doing either of these things towards your final paper. So moving on to week 4, you'll see we're focusing on interviewing. Again, sometime this week you should plan on conducting a 30-minute or longer interview at some point. Again, that can be any time between Monday and the following Tuesday. But that's something that's going to depend on your schedule and your interviewee's schedule, so I'm not going to set an exact deadline for that during this week. And then we'll be looking at some sample student essays and practicing writing a peer review before you do that. And then during week 5, you'll be submitting a rough draft and writing peer reviews to one another, revising your project 1 and submitting it finally in week 6. So that's an outline of what we're going to be doing throughout the unit. So I just want to remind you guys of one thing. So this week it's really important that you brainstorm and think a lot about the different subcultures that you're a part of or that you're interested in exploring, because we're going to start, or you're going to start working on the research within that subculture during weeks 3 and 4. So I hope this introduces you a little bit to the unit, and after watching this video and reading this material, you can go back to our course site and move into the work for week 2, which is posted here.